Hello friends, welcome or welcome back. My name is Whitley and today we are going to be doing my winter wrap up. I have done quarterly wrap ups the last couple of wrap ups that I've done, but I think going forward I may try to do monthly wrap ups. I don't know. We're testing things out. We're dabbling, we're experimenting, we're seeing what feels best. But today I will be going over all of the books that I've read over the past 3 months with some statistics and superlatives. This is going to be quite the chatty little video, so get comfortable, grab a snack, grab a drink, snuggle up, and let's get comfy, hang out, and talk about the books that I've read this winter. I love seeing everyone's statistics and numbers, and mine are no exception. Even though the numbers are absolutely not why we are here, it is absolutely quality versus quantity, but I'm always curious to see how my numbers are looking. It's a good way for me to track kind of where I'm at and what I want to improve on in the future. If you would like to pause the video, here are my statistics for this season. To break it down a little bit, I read 7 books in December with 2,171 pages. In January, I read 9 books. I DNF'd 1 book and read 2,898 pages. And in February, I read 7 books again and read 2,566 pages. So over the past 3 months, I have read 7,635 pages, not too shabby, and my average rating has been pretty good. The average rating over the past 3 months is a 3.75. Granted, I like to see it around a 4, but it could be a lot worse. I usually aim for about a 50-50 split on the read from before authors versus new authors, so not too bad. I am hoping to have my series pie piece be a little bit bigger going forward. It is a bit small for my goals right now. And as you can tell, I have read a lot of romance this season, which makes sense. I mean, winter is definitely a romance heavy season for me, and having horror and fantasy tie at second just really sums up my reading tastes. I'm going to talk about the books that I read in December first. I had a couple of festive Christmassy vlogs in December, the first of which being just kind of a festive get in the Christmassy mood vlog. I'm not going to go super in detail about the books that were featured in vlogs. If you want my in-depth thoughts on them, be sure to check out the vlogs, but we'll go over kind of what they were about and what I thought of them overall. I read 3 romance books for this, the first being Wreck the Halls by Tessa Bailey. 2 children of absolute rock icons rekindle this connection that they had when they met as teenagers while they worked together to try to convince their mothers to do a reunion show for Christmas. And now that they're back together and actually getting to know each other, they cannot deny the feelings between them, and they are trying so hard to hide these feelings while being on national television because they agreed to have this whole process of trying to convince their mothers to reunite for this reunion show to be live streamed to build this publicity and tension around this concert, assuming these two can even achieve the impossible and make a miracle happen by getting their mothers to agree to this reunion show, because there is this really old wound between their mothers and they have not gotten along since the band broke up. This was really cute. I really enjoyed this one. The tension was great. Watching these two clearly have such huge crushes on each other while trying not to show it to each other or to the world was absolutely adorable. I really love Tessa Bailey's writing and her characters and her romance, and this was no exception. It wasn't anything super special or imaginative, but it was so enjoyable. I gave this 4 stars. Next, I read Make the Season Bright by Ashley Herring Blake, another music-centric Christmas romance. A concert violinist gets left at the altar by her singer-songwriter girlfriend, and after not speaking to each other for 5 years, they coincidentally end up at the same mountain lodge for Christmas. They pretend not to know each other, all while there's this small town singles event going on that they are kind of forced to attend. I unfortunately did not enjoy this one. Both of our love interests absolutely sucked. Although Brighton, the one that left her fiance at the altar and was being a huge crybaby about it, that her ex-fiance didn't immediately forgive her, was unbearable. I also felt no chemistry between these two. The characters had no personality. The writing I found very dull, and the romantic conflict could have been absolutely avoided. The marriage falling apart could have been avoided if these two would have just communicated with each other, like even a little bit. Just talk about your feelings, just a little bit. And all of this could have been avoided. I in no way see what these two even see in each other. And I have zero faith that this relationship is going to last. I feel like by the end of it, it felt like they were just going to fall right back into their old habits. I did like the side characters. I mean, I cared more about the side characters' romance than I did this main romance. And I did like all of the LGBTQ rep that we got, which are the only two things that really saved it from being a 1-star read. And lastly, I read The Afterlife of Holly Chase by Cynthia Hand. This is a YA retelling of A Christmas Carol. Holly Chase was a spoiled, ungrateful teenage brat, and when she is visited by 3 ghosts, she does not believe any of it is real. So when she unfortunately passes away shortly after, she finds out how real it was. She wakes up at the Scrooge Project headquarters. This is an organization that puts on this Christmas Carol every single year. They choose a Scrooge and they try to rehabilitate them and make them a better person. And she wakes to find out that she is now the new ghost of Christmas past. I adore The Christmas Carol, and this was pleasantly surprising. Holly was such an unlikable character, but you cannot help but root for her redemption. And the way that this organization worked and all of the intricacies behind it was really interesting. And I had a lot of fun learning about this organization. I mean, some of the magic didn't quite make sense, but it did not hinder my enjoyment at all. And even though the ending, I'm sure a lot of people saw coming, absolutely shook. I did not see that coming. That twist at the end got me. And I feel like this ended in such a beautiful way that it wasn't like a lot of YA romances that we get. And I really enjoyed it. I gave this 4 stars. The next vlog was my Christmas horror vlog. I read a couple of horrors that are based around Christmas. The first being Krampus by Brom. This is a folktale horror about the rivalry between Santa Claus and Krampus and how a small town deadbeat gets mixed up in all of this drama. This was definitely untraditionally festive, but I really enjoyed it. The first part was a little slow. We were just kind of getting to know Jesse, who is the protagonist, and kind of his small town drama that he separately is mixed up in. But once Krampus really enters the story and we start to get the backstories of both Krampus and Santa Claus, and this age-old rivalry, this battle reignites between them, it drew me in. And even Jesse's storyline, his family drama that he was dealing with, eventually did draw me in as well. I just love Brom's writing so much. His work is so masterful. It's atmospheric, it's imaginative with some really nice, juicy, gory scenes mixed in. This also kind of felt a little bit like A Christmas Carol, but in a very different way. This is meant to make you question your view and your choices, but instead of being about power and greed, it is about destroying the earth and how you treat each other. I really enjoyed this. I gave it 4 stars. The other book that I read for the Christmas horror vlog was We Are Always Tender with Our Dead by Eric LaRocca. The small town of Burnt Sparrow, New Hampshire seems to be a hotbed of tragedy and unexplained phenomenon. Most recently, a strange family of these faceless beings comes into town and commits this horrible atrocity at the Christmas Day parade, leaving the streets littered with dead. We're mainly following this young boy in the aftermath of this tragedy. We're seeing through his eyes how this cult-like town is, one, grieving and honoring the people that have died, and 2, how they plan to seek justice for the mass murder of their people. This, to say the least, was so strange. There were some horrific, fantastical elements in this that were just so out there. Some of the things that were happening in this book, I was just had me sitting there staring at a wall. What the hell am I reading? What is happening here? But honestly, that is a recurring theme with Eric LaRocca's books. Love him or hate him, he is unique. And I have done both, honestly. His writing, it equally entertains me, but it also confuses me. I don't know if some of these crazy things that were happening were supposed to be metaphors and your girl just wasn't getting it. They were going right over my head. But I really do like his writing style most of the time, even though this one felt very heavily salacious and like sexual for no reason. Again, another common theme for Eric LaRocca, but it just didn't feel like it served a purpose in this story. And the ending, and really the whole second half of this book, really just was so confusing. And it was really hard for me to follow. I didn't know what was going on or how anything connected. And it just felt, I don't know, the ending felt really unsatisfying to me. But I have to say, like, I do not know how this man thinks of the things that he thinks about. His imagination and his creativity never ceases to amaze me. But this just didn't feel like a cohesive story. It felt like a bunch of short stories mashed together to try to form a cohesive story, but it just didn't work, which I guess makes sense because Eric LaRocca does write a lot of short stories, but with this being a novel and a first in a series at that, it just did not feel very cohesive. I gave it 3 stars. And I did manage to read 2 other books that were not featured in vlogs, the first of which being Shiver by Maggie Stiefvater. This is a young adult urban fantasy following Grace and Sam. Grace has always been enamored by these wolves that live behind her house, especially one wolf. She calls her wolf. This yellow-eyed gray wolf that always seems to be watching her right back, and she feels she has this connection with this wolf. And that wolf is none other than Sam. Sam lives 2 lives. During the winter, he is forced to live his life in his werewolf form. Pack mentality and instinct at the forefront of his mind, but he cannot seem to stay away from Grace. And when Grace finds a boy shivering and naked on her doorstep with striking yellow eyes, she knows that that is her man. That is her wolf. And this really sets off just a whirlwind romance. There's also some mystery mixed in surrounding a young boy who has gone missing. They are trying to locate him, and there is this constant tension of whether Sam is going to change again and when it is going to happen and if it is going to be his final change, leaving him a wolf forever. This was admittedly cute. The characters didn't have a ton of personality, and the romance was a bit insta-lovey. I mean, these 2 were immediately obsessed with each other. I mean, I get that they've been like feeling this connection through no words, just vibes from her backyard. But I don't know, there wasn't build up at all. It was just like, yes, hello, we're together now. I thought the writing was beautiful though. I really enjoyed Maggie Stiefvater's writing, which makes me so much more excited to try out The Raven Boys, which is her other series. And there were a lot of emotional themes and moments in this that I really did enjoy. The tragic pasts of both of our characters, mostly Sam, but Grace as well. I honestly don't think I had realized how invested and drawn in I had become until like this really intense and sad moment happened, and like I almost teared up. This is very 2009 fantasy romance, very Twilight coded. Not that that's a bad thing. I just think that I would have enjoyed it a lot more had I read it when I was, eating these kinds of books up. Not that I didn't enjoy it. I did still enjoy it, but I feel like I would have enjoyed it a lot more like a decade ago. Their young love was really cute. Their absolute adoration of each other and willingness to fight anything and anyone that was trying to separate them was really endearing. Sam was such a sweetie little cinnamon roll, and the plot of the mystery and the werewolf drama really did keep me intrigued, but it wasn't anything that left me wanting more. And that's not really what you want from a first in a series. I gave it 4 stars. It probably does lean a little bit more towards 3.75, but I don't quarter rate, so I did give it 4 stars. I honestly doubt I'll ever continue in the series. Yes, there are more things to uncover, especially about some of the side characters, and I know that we get some new characters introduced, but I thought the ending wrapped up really nicely, and I just don't feel the urge to continue. But I am really glad that I finally got around to it. I'm glad that I read it, especially because it has been on my TBR for over a decade. And the last book of 2025 was Caught Up by Nevessa Allen. This is the sequel to Lights Out, which I absolutely adored. one of my favorite books of the year. In this one, we're following Allie's cousin, who is a mobster who has been under the thumb of his domineering mob boss of a father for years. And even though their past is an absolute hot mess, he decides that he cannot stay away from Lauren any longer. And Lauren is a mega successful cam girl on, I don't remember what they call it in here, but it's OnlyFans. And she has been doing really well for herself ever since she put the traumatizing high school experience with Junior behind her. But even though Junior kind of wrecks all that when he decides to waltz back into her life and open up those old wounds, she cannot deny the chemistry that is still between them. We follow them on their second chance romance journey while Junior is exploring his kinks and trying to get out of the family business. And as Lauren struggles to let her guard down again and tries to save the kink club that has become like a second home to her. I did enjoy this one, but it was nowhere near the level that Lights Out was. I was obsessed with Lights Out, and this was really a disappointment in comparison. There were quite a few things that I enjoyed about this, especially Junior being an absolute simp for Lauren, even though he is a walking red flag. And I really enjoyed Lauren's political, social work that she was doing. However, I do feel like the sex positivity and the political nuances in this were a bit heavy-handed at times. I loved getting the little glimpses of Josh and Allie throughout this, and the bromance that has grown between Josh and Junior was so funny, so cute. I really enjoyed the comedic duo that was Lauren's two roommates. Love the non-binary rep. I read that some people were struggling to figure out who the author was talking about just because this character was using they them pronouns. Seemed pretty clear to me. I also really liked the eventual open, very honest communication between these two characters. I love that that is such a heavy theme in Nevessa Allen's romances. And the relationship was cute, but I was just not in love with these characters like I was Josh and Allie. I was a little disappointed that there wasn't more anonymity and tension between these two. Lauren knows pretty much immediately when Junior shows up at her club that it is Junior, and it was revealed pretty early that he is the person that has been following her on her OnlyFans page since the beginning, which was really the only anonymous thing about him. And as serious as the mob should be, the plot just seemed very low stakes. I don't know. The whole overarching story just didn't feel very cohesive. It felt like a lot of random things kind of thrown together. But all that to say, I adore Nevessa Allen's writing. Her atmosphere is fantastic. Her writing is so humorous. I do wish that there was more of that silliness in this book like there was in Lights Out. This one definitely had more of a broody tone, but I really did enjoy it. Despite all of my complaints, it's just so hard going up after such an incredible book, and how much I enjoyed Lights Out. This, in comparison, just fell really short. If this wasn't directly related to and a continuation of Lights Out, I may have gone a little easier on it. Alas, I still did give it 4 stars. Again, really enjoyed it. A low 4-star, but still a 4. Now on to January. I had one vlog in January. It was my Winterween vlog. I read some 2025 Goodreads Choice Awards nominees in the horror category to see which one I thought should win. The first being When the Wolf Comes Home by Nat Cassidy. I absolutely adored this book. A woman finds a small boy cowering in her bushes after a very long and stressful shift at the local diner, which sets off an insane sci-fi fantastical chain of events that leads her to go on the run with this boy from his impossible monstrous father. This was nonstop action, so much tension, constantly climbing, and I cared so much for these characters. This book was absolute insanity, and I loved every single second of it. Absolute 5 stars. The next book I read for that vlog was The Lamb by Lucy Rose. This one wasn't quite as successful as the first. This is a coming of age horror novel about a young girl and her mom who live on the edge of the woods, and they lure these wanderers into their home with promises of security and assistance, but instead they butcher them and eat them. But everything changes when this new wanderer, Eden, arrives. This was a book about cannibalism, but not really about cannibalism. It was more so about these two women's huge holes inside of themselves. They felt so empty and they were just trying everything they could to fill that hole. And I unfortunately just never really felt connected to these characters or the story. I did enjoy the ending. It was definitely surprising. It was disturbing and gruesome, but a lot less impactful because I did care so little about the characters. I liked the writing and the isolated setting, but again, this story never really gripped me. I never really got into it, so I gave it 2.5 stars. I also read the Goodreads Choice Awards horror winner, which was Witchcraft for Wayward Girls by Grady Hendrix. Our protagonist, Fern, a pregnant teenager, gets sent away to this group home for unwed mothers. A group home where families just kind of send their pregnant teenagers to hide away from society, have their children, give it away for adoption, and then they can come back home like nothing ever happened. These poor girls are controlled, silenced, oppressed, really helpless until they meet this old librarian, offering them a way to take back a little bit of that control with a introductory book on witchcraft. This was a beautiful, infuriating, disgusting, sometimes gory story that really tugged at my heartstrings. It was steeped in tension and it had so much to say. I loved the themes in this. It was slow at times, but overall, I really enjoyed it. I gave this 4 stars. The last book I read in that vlog was I Am Not Your Final Girl by Claire C. Holland. This is a book of poems, and each poem is told from the perspective of a female in horror cinema. Lots of feminine themes of rage, oppression, and expectations. There were some really great poems in here. I do think that I would have enjoyed it a lot more had I known more of the females and watched the movies that these were based from. There were a few that I did understand the references from, and I did like those, but I feel like the poems would have hit closer to home had I understood where the source material was coming from. I still really enjoyed the collection overall. You don't have to know the source material to really get the impact of the poems and hear what the poet was saying, but I do think that it would have made it a little better. The poems were still beautiful and I still enjoyed my time. I gave this 3 stars. And now for the books not in vlogs. First of which being Shadow and Bone by Leigh Bardugo. This is a Russian-inspired young adult fantasy with a bit of a romance side plot. We follow Alina, who was raised in an orphanage alongside her best friend Mal, who was really the only person that brought her any semblance of family and happiness. And she was thought to be nothing special. The Grisha, which is this nation's magical elite soldiers, came and tested her and Mal as children, like they do with all children, and they were shown to be unremarkable. That is until Alina joins the First Army as a teenager. In this world, there is this slash of darkness that cuts the country in half. This darkness, the Fold, is a desolate wasteland full of monsters. And when her regiment is forced into the Fold and forced to make the trek across to the other side to try to deliver supplies, they are attacked by the monsters that lurk within this darkness. But when her best friend and unrequited crush is inches from death by the hands of one of these beasts, this long buried power that Alina didn't even know she possessed comes to light to save her best friend's life. And once it is known that she possesses this power, she is immediately whisked away to be trained as a Grisha by the Darkling, who is the leader of this second army. And the Darkling fills her head with these fantasies that she is going to save the world. She is going to be the one that eradicates this Fold, because even though magic is nothing new in this world, she is the only one of her kind that can do what she does. But first she has to learn how to use this power and control it, all while trying to adjust to this whole new life that she's been thrust into. I really enjoyed seeing Alina's training and the progression that she made with her powers in this book. I really connected with her. She felt so out of place and in this new world that she found herself thrust in, and she wanted nothing more than to be accepted and to make the Darkling proud. The world was imaginative and really fun to learn about. The magic system was complex and unique, but while still being easily understandable. This pretty immediately gripped me with its lush world, the dynamic characters that all like leave their mark on you. And while the politics and all of the like relationships and dynamics between all of the different Grecias and the royalties were decent, I am very interested to learn more going forward. And my God, the twist that we got at like 75% of this, my jaw was on the floor. Like I never in a million years saw that coming. Like I'm sure some people did, but I was flabbergasted. And once that reveal hit, I was like, oh my gosh, this makes so much sense. Like I was connecting the dots. Everything was just like aligning and coming together. Like, yes, of course, duh. After that revelation, the story like really took off and I could not put this down till the end. My only complaint is that I'm not 100% sold on the romance side plot in this. It definitely did get a little bit better towards the end, but I in no way am like shipping this. I could care less, honestly, about the relationship. I'm hoping with more exploration into the relationship in the future books that I do kind of like get drawn more into and feel more connected with their relationship, like care a little bit about it more. But even if the relationship, the romance never really picks up for me, like the plot and the story of this, I feel like is going to be enough for me to enjoy this series. I gave this 4.5 stars. Really enjoyed like the characters, the world, the magic, and that villain, the freaking villain. Breathtaking. The next book I finished was Welcome to the Hunamdong Bookshop by Hwang Bo-room. In this, we follow a really cute, lovely cast of characters who are all kind of dealing with something or other in their life, but they all meet and connect and become friends in this cute little bookshop owned by Youngju. Youngju was really unhappy in her life. She was burned out. She was drained. And having had enough, she decides to leave her life behind. She leaves her husband. She leaves her hometown. She leaves her career, all to follow her dream. And she moves to this small town to open this bookshop. We really just follow her journey and her experiences settling into this new life and all of the struggles that that brings. But these struggles are made easier by all of these new friends that she is making. This is a very slice of life story. This really highlights the enjoyment and beauty of a slow, simple life. It discusses what dreams and happiness really mean and how people go about achieving those, and if it's even an achievable goal. There are conversations about the grind and the hustle culture that have become so prevalent in today's society, and how your enjoyment and your well-being can really fall to the wayside in pursuit of something grand and great. But I absolutely loved that it emphasized how many different definitions there are of what a successful life is. This book contained so many beautiful discussions and quotes about books, about writing, about work-life balance, about following your dreams, following your own path, and really like fulfillment in your life. I mean, it was nothing groundbreaking. These are all sentiments that we have heard so many times, but it is good to be reminded of those every once in a while. This book did have a bit of warm and coziness. However, it did kind of read like a bit of a self-help book a lot of the time. And even though I did like our characters, they were in no means fleshed out. Like I did have a bit of a hard time distinguishing them from each other. And don't get me wrong, I can enjoy a slow-paced, like slice of life kind of book, but this also kind of felt a bit directionless at times. If I was rating this on themes and discussions and kind of vibes alone, it would be closer to a 5-star, but there were just a lot of hindrances in the story and quite a few things that brought this down for me. So I gave it a 3.5. I still enjoyed it, but you know, not the best. The next book I read was After I Do by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This is not your average romance novel. This story follows a couple, Lauren and Ryan, who have been together for 11 years. We get to see them at their absolute best. We get to see them falling in love, but we also see them at their absolute rock bottom worst. Over the past few months, these two have realized that they can't even seem to stand each other. Somewhere along the way, they have fallen out of love with each other. They're both miserable, but neither one of them are ready to completely throw in the towel and to give up what they have. So they make a decision that they are going to have a trial separation. They are going to go an entire year without contacting each other. 1 year of no contact, no strings, total freedom to see if what they have is even salvageable or if it's just broken beyond repair at this point. I loved that we got the glimpses of these two at their peak. They were so in love. You could feel the love that these two had for each other, and that made their decline that much more heartbreaking. This book honestly made me so grateful for the relationship that I have. Like, my husband and I have been together for 15 years. And even though it is not always sunshine and rainbows, I am still so excited to see him at the end of every single day. And seeing how truly unhappy these two had become in their relationship and in their marriage made me so incredibly sad and just so grateful for what I have. This was so emotional and it felt so raw and so real. Like, I truly never knew how this was going to end with so many romances. Like, even though there's the conflicts and the miscommunications, throughout all of that, at the end, it's going to be a happy ending. This was not that. I never knew if these two were actually going to pull it together to end up together again, or if they were just going to call it quits. I shall not confirm or deny whether these two make it out together, but I was constantly teetering between, oh yeah, these two are definitely going to make it. Like, they are going to pull together and they're going to make this work. And then the next moment I was like, no, there's just too much going against these two to make this work. I really did enjoy this absolute roller coaster of emotions. There were some slow parts. This is very character driven, slice of life, but Taylor Jenkins Reid is really out here writing characters like no one else. Every single character really leaps off the page and makes you feel like you know them, like on a personal level. I loved how close Lauren and her family were, and I loved seeing how their separation not only affected Lauren, but Lauren's family as well, because being with someone for 11 years, like, they become a part of your family. And each of the members of Lauren's family each had their own little storyline going on. And I just really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed hearing everyone's differing opinions of what a relationship should be. And the real moral is that no two relationships are the same. Every relationship is different. What is going to work for one relationship is not going to work for the next. And you cannot let anyone else decide how you are going to live your life or your relationship. But that also means you can't judge or begrudge someone else for living their life and being in that kind of relationship or having a different kind of relationship than you. I really just enjoyed exploring so many unique perspectives of what love means and what a happy relationship is. I ended up giving this 4 stars. It was so beautifully written. It was tragic. It was heartbreaking, but it was so relatable and so real. Even though this is the first Taylor Jenkins Reid book that didn't quite hit that 5-star mark for me, I am still absolutely going to be picking up every single thing this woman has ever written because she is such a masterful talent. She is such a phenomenal writer. Like, her books are mainly romances, but they are always so much more than that. Although not my favorite, I am very happy to be adding another Taylor Jenkins Reid to my read pile. The next book I read was Thrum by Meg Smitherman, a sci-fi, horror, psychological thriller, romance novella. A strange collection, I know, but wow. It really blended all of these elements so seamlessly for such a unique story. It was so good. We follow Amy, who has awakened from her stasis sleep to find herself in the middle of deep space. All of her crewmates are dead. She is out of fuel. She is unable to contact home. All of her communications are down. She sends out a distress call in desperation, hoping for the best, but expecting the worst. But to her surprise, a few minutes later, she is contacted by a creature calling himself Dorian. She's actually in space to try to find alien life and to study them. So when Dorian reaches out and invites her onto his ship and offering assistance in any way that he can provide, she obviously agrees, but Dorian and this ship are so much more than meets the eye. Dorian is clearly not human, but he is able to morph himself into the amalgamation of this handsome human man. Oh, and there is this incessant hum on Dorian's ship that Amy feels down to her bones. It is consuming her. It is whispering to her. It is making her a little crazy. And even as her mind is struggling to make sense of her surroundings and she begins to see things that can't possibly be real, she, throughout all of this, constantly feels this draw towards Dorian, who is really her only source of solace and safety in this ship full of mysteries, mazes, and fear. I honestly ate this up. I freaking loved this. This was such a fun, weird, addictive, unpredictable ride. This packed such a punch for only being 144 pages. I was glued to the page. I was enraptured the entire time. I never knew what Dorian's motivations were or what he was gonna do, but I still shipped him and Amy so hard. The constant tension and the absolute fever dreaminess of this ship was so phenomenally done. This honestly had a little bit of everything. It was ominous, it was gory, it was creepy, it was sexy, it was so claustrophobic and just plain weird, but I adored it. The atmosphere, the intrigue, the twists and turns, the mystery of not only what was happening with Amy herself, but what happened with her ship and her crewmates. The horror elements were so vivid and so disturbing. The ending was definitely not what I was expecting. I don't know what I was expecting, but it wasn't that. But it also fell just like a touch flat. I wanted a little bit more from the ending. I wanted just a little bit more with the ending and with the character depths. I honestly could have read a full-length novel with these two and this ship. Like I wanted more. It was stunning. I gave it 4.5 stars. This definitely falls into the weird girl lit category that I love so much. If you're a fan of things like Bunny, Our Wives Under the Sea, those books that make you think, what the hell am I reading right now? Like, I highly recommend this one. The last book I read in January was Book Lovers by Emily Henry. This is a really cute but emotional romantic comedy following Nora Stevens. She is a no-nonsense, tough as nails, a little bit of a control freak literary agent. She is an absolute shark in the publishing world, and with that cold exterior and commitment to her work, she has been a little unlucky in love. I honestly loved how she saw the world in book tropes. Like she was always like the other woman, you know, the stuck-up city girl that the male love interest leaves for the sweet country girl. It really seems like the only people that Nora care about are her clients and her sister. So in order to bridge this gap that has seemed to grow between her and her sister, she agrees to accompany her sister on this trip to visit their favorite book's setting by Nora's favorite client, which is Sunshine Falls, North Carolina. Nora's sister really wants to show her that Nora can be the main character in her own story, and she really wants to get her out of her like workaholic shell. But things don't go quite as planned, because when they arrive at Sunshine Falls, Nora finds none other than Charlie Lastra, an equally as brooding literary agent that she has had the misfortune of meeting when she tried to have a meeting with him and sell one of her clients' books to him. Needless to say, these two did not hit it off during that first meeting, but whether because they are so similar or because they seem to be the only two people in this town that are not enjoying this small town idyllic life, they are drawn to each other. What follows is such a heartfelt, emotional journey, not only between Nora and Charlie, but between Nora and her sister. I absolutely loved the relationships in this book. The characters, although not every single one of them were, super fleshed out, they were dynamic and super relatable. These characters were so flawed. Like there were so many things to dislike about these characters at first, but the more time that we spend with them and the more that we get to see where their mind is and where these little personality quirks come from, it really makes you feel for them and understand where these like hard exteriors are coming from. And it was just such a lovely journey. Charlie and Nora were so shallow and withdrawn, even with each other for the longest time, and especially to the outside world. But the people that they cared about, they loved so fiercely. And the banter between these two in this book was phenomenal. Like their chemistry was so palpable. It jumped off the page. And the way that they didn't want to want each other, but they just like could not stop it. They could not resist it. They couldn't deny it. It was so good. And the way that Charlie never makes or even wants Nora to sacrifice anything, especially for him, was so refreshing. And the fact that this man loved her, not despite her, stony, controlling, neurotic, a bit pompous at times, sharky personality, but because of it, because he could see himself in her, was just so good. I feel like with a lot of romances, there is this character arc where the character, has this revelation, and midway they see the light and they want to become a better person. But I loved that this had both Charlie and Nora so flawed, but they did not want or need the other to change for each other. And they just loved and appreciated each other for exactly who they were. I also have to shout out the tall girl rep. I felt so seen. Nora is 5'11", and being a 6 foot tall woman, like, I absolutely related to so many of the struggles that Nora had in this book with her height. I absolutely adore a tall or plus size love interest. I feel like there is way too damn much of the, little small dainty, this man could crush me female protagonist, and I'm over it. There was so much to love about this book, and even though the banter was incredible and the romance was really cute, it honestly never really had me having those like butterflies kicking my feet, like super obsessed. So for that reason, I couldn't quite give it a 5-star, but I'm going to give it a 4.5. This was so good. It was such a great mix of romance and tension between these two, but also while having these interpersonal family struggles. I really enjoyed it. So good. Highly recommend. And I will briefly discuss the DNF that I had in January. It was Wicked Saints by Emily A. Duncan. This has since been unhauled. I have washed my hands of it because I did not enjoy this. I think I got about 150 pages in. I gave it my best shot. I really wanted to like it. The premise sounded so interesting, but I was just so bored. And I found myself really just skimming the pages to try to get to a more interesting part and to get to a point where I was enjoying myself, and it just never arrived. So I was like, no, I'm going to put it down. I also heard that it was similar to Shadow and Bone, and I also had Shadow and Bone on my TBR for January. So I was like, if I'm going to be reading a comparison to Shadow and Bone, let me just pick up, Shadow and Bone, because I'm not enjoying this one. So I did DNF Wicked Saints. And now on to February. I had one vlog, granted, came out in March, but I read the books in February. It was trying to fall back in love with romantasy as a genre, and I read 3 books for that. The first of which being Sea of Ruin by Pam Godwin. This is a dark fantasy romance about a notorious female pirate captain that is taken into custody to face trial for her piracy. This being right after her husband catches back up with her after her being on the run from him for 2 years due to him cheating on her, but she has to depend on the absolute devotion and adoration of her husband, who is another notorious pirate captain, to rescue her. But the more time that she is spending with the captain of the British Guard that has captured her, the less that she wants to be saved. I liked this, but I didn't love it. I never really felt drawn into either of these romances. Both felt very surface level, very lust, not love. I really did enjoy the atmosphere of being on these ships on the open sea. I love the pirates. I would still recommend it if you do like dark romances, if you like pirates, if you don't mind surface level romance, but also please check the trigger warnings because, I don't really have triggers, but I was not expecting this book to go as far as it did with a lot of the violence scenes. So trigger warnings for that, but I gave it 3.5 stars. It was okay. The next book I read for that vlog was Heartless Hunter by Kristen Ciccarelli. This is a enemies to lovers witch and witch hunter fantasy romance. We're following Rune, who is a renegade witch on an island that is eradicating witchcraft. Witches are being hunted down and executed. By day, Rune is a normal socialite, but by night, she is the Crimson Moth. She is this renegade witch who is helping witches evade capture and escape custody. When her late grandmother's best friend ends up captured, she is desperate to save her. Desperate enough to try to seduce the captain of the witch hunters to try to get information. Gideon has been hunting the Crimson Moth for the past 2 years, and when some new information comes to light that leads to Rune possibly having some information, he decides to take advantage of her new interest and decides to try to court her right back to try to get information on the Crimson Moth. I absolutely adored this one. I ate it up. The banter and the tension between these two, the skirting around their real feelings and constantly having to talk themselves out of their real feelings, saying like, this isn't real. Like, we are doing this to get information out of each other. These feelings aren't real. This is all pretend. But we all know how the story goes. The deceit and the pretending turn into very real feelings. Their chemistry was absolute fire. The characters were fantastic. The magic, even though blood magic isn't this new concept, it felt so fresh. I loved the mix of the high society Bridgerton-esque scenery mixed with these fantastical elements. This was so damn good. So damn good. I gave it 4.5 stars. It wasn't quite that 5 stars. Listen, guys, I am trying to be a little bit more picky with my 5 stars. So I did give this a 4.5 star, but it was phenomenal. I think maybe the only reason I didn't give it a full 5 star was because, as we've discussed, it was mentioned a few too many times how tiny she was compared to how huge he was, which is just annoying. And the ending, although emotional, did feel a little bit rushed, but I would absolutely recommend this. Please read it. It's so good. And the last book I read for that vlog was Violet Thistlewaite is Not a Villain Anymore by Emily Kremfoltz. This is a cozy fantasy romance about our girl, Violet. She used to be the right-hand woman to this nefarious villain, but when he passes away, she decides that she doesn't want to be a villain anymore. She wants to be good. She moves to the quaint little town of Dragon's Rest, where she decides that she is going to use her nature magic to spread happiness instead of, pain and misery by opening a flower shop. But she just so happens to be sharing the greenhouse that she works out of with a brooding but handsome alchemist who is running his family's apothecary. Nathaniel and Violet instantly clash and butt heads, but they cannot help the attraction that they feel for each other. But when a new resident arrives in town who knows Violet's past and this mysterious blight coincidentally starts popping up all over town that is rotting the plant life, they decide that they need to work together to try to save their town. Being a debut, I went into this with very low expectations, but optimistic hopes, and I am honestly impressed with how much I enjoyed this one. It had all of the, cozy, quaint, small town vibes that you look for in a cozy fantasy, with the quirky side characters and the sense of community. And Violet and Nathaniel both had depth and struggle and were honestly just so cute together. I mean, was the world or the magic complex? No. Was everything super predictable? Yes. Did I still have a great time? Yeah, I did. I gave this 4 stars. If you want a lower stakes, cozy fantasy romance, look no further. Don't sleep on this one. I really enjoyed it. I also read 4 other books that were not featured in a vlog in February, the first of which being Siege and Storm by Leigh Bardugo. This is the second in the Grishaverse trilogy, and unfortunately, I just did not like this one as much as I did the first. I can't really get into the plot of this one without spoiling kind of the end of Shadow and Bone, but this was just so much slower paced than the first one. I liked the new characters that we were introduced to, and I did enjoy some of the development that we got in some of the characters, but I feel like 70% of this book was planning and plotting, and I was just struggling to care. I really liked the beginning, I really liked the end, but everything in the middle just felt like a slog. And don't even get me started on the romance in this, which I was not a fan of. There was so much insecurity and jealousy, and I mean, I get it, but it just felt very immature. I like both of these characters individually, but I don't know if I like them together. They kind of remind me of Kale and Selena from Throne of Glass, but not nearly as interesting. He may be what she wants and needs right now, or at least what she wanted and needed in the past, but as her powers grow, it feels like he's becoming a lot more distant and possibly fearful, both of what she can do and how the power could and is starting to change Elena. His loyalty really is cute though. Like, he wants so bad to protect her, but he just knows that he is not enough to protect her, and he will never leave her. Like, he is there 100% for her, but the romance just isn't there for me. I am probably going to finish the series, although I will admit I heavily debated DNFing this book multiple times. I'm hopeful that this simply suffered from kind of the middle book syndrome and that the third and final installment will be better. And even though I don't heavily care for these characters, I am curious enough to want to pick up the final book to find out how everything is going to wrap up and what is going to happen to these characters. But I am definitely not itching to get into the third one like I was at the end of the first book going into this one. I gave this 3 stars. It was decent, but it was very mid. The next book I read, I was not expecting to read this month. It was kind of an impromptu read. My husband and I found ourselves on a little bit of an impromptu road trip. So we were looking for a short audiobook that we could listen to together on the road. And we picked up Graveyard Shift by ML Rio. We have this ragtag group of 5 individuals that always come to the cemetery at night, whether they have insomnia, they work the night shift, or they just like hanging out in the graveyard at night. These 5 always meet in the graveyard and kind of hang out, but one night they find this freshly dug grave in the graveyard and no idea where it came from. And when the gravedigger returns, they find out what the hole was dug for, but that just leads to more questions that they are determined to get answers to. So they end up following this guy. But the more that they find out about this guy, the more that they are connecting the dots and seeming to think that maybe what he is doing has something to do with really strange occurrences that have been happening around town that have been the headlines in the news lately. This was just okay for me and my husband. We both found it very mid. It does have some like dark academia, atmospheric, spooky, eerie vibes, and the mystery was interesting enough, but it never really gripped me. And the ending was very abrupt. We both kind of looked at each other and we were like, is that it? There was this huge revelation at the end, and I feel like we never got any of the aftermath, and I feel like we needed that for it to feel like a complete story. The story itself, the plot was a good one, but I wasn't really a fan of how it was told. I liked the characters, but it kind of felt like more of a character study of these 5 individuals, but not even that was done with much depth. With none of the components really packing any kind of punch, it just left the whole thing feeling very bland. I like the writing and I would be willing to pick up more of ML Rio's writing, but as for this one, it just fell flat and it was not for me. I gave it 2.5 stars. The next book I read was Written in the Stars by Alexandria Bellaflor. This is a super cute sapphic rom-com. First, we have Darcy. She is a woman who is fed up with the romance scene to the chagrin of her matchmaker brother, who has been setting her up on never-ending revolving blind dates. When the most recent blind date that she goes on that her brother set up for her is an absolute disaster, he tries again. He wants her to go speed dating with him. So she decides, no, actually, my date went great, so I can't go speed dating with you. But her brother happens to be very close friends and new business partners with said disastrous date, Elle. Elle is an astronomer looking for her soulmate, and when her friend and new business partner sets her up on a blind date with his sister, she is stoked That is until she finds out that Darcy is the absolute opposite of her. Even though she cannot deny this like pull and chemistry and attraction between them, she is pretty instantly clear that Darcy is not her person. So needless to say, when she sees her friend and new business partner, Darcy's brother, again, and tells her what a great time Darcy had and that Darcy can't wait to see her again, she is shocked and dismayed. This leads to Elle confronting Darcy about what is going on, what is happening, and Darcy does tell her that I was just trying to get my brother off my back. I didn't want to be set up on any more blind dates. Please play along. Elle agrees, but with the stipulation that Darcy also has to play the loving, doting girlfriend for her family over the holidays. An agreement is struck and an expiration date is set, but we all know how this story goes. The fake dating and the pretending turn into all too real feelings, but is this spark and chemistry between them going to be enough to overcome all of their vast differences? This was such a cute, fun read. I adored all of the gayness in this book. Both of these characters were very relatable in their own ways, and I loved how both of them were there for each other even before the romance really kicked in. They were there for each other when they were like hitting these really sad moments. You could really feel their chemistry and their connection. It was so good. And there was a lot of astronomy talk. I mean, with that being Elle and her best friend Margot's jobs. They run this horoscope blog, so we do get a lot of astrology talk, which I did enjoy. I would consider myself a light enjoyer of astronomy. I don't know a lot about it, honestly. I mean, I'm not even sure that I 100% buy into it, but I do find it interesting. And I feel like this book struck a really good balance of giving the people that are really into astrology little fun nuggets, while also not being so heavy-handed that if you're not super into astrology, that it's too much. I felt like the ending was a bit cut short. It kind of ended out of nowhere, and there were a lot of pop culture references, which I'm not always a huge fan of, but overall, I really enjoyed this one. I gave it 4 stars. And the last book I read in February was Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen, a classic that needs no introduction, but I'm going to give you one anyway. The story revolves around the Bennet family, and the Bennet parents, bearing no sons, really all they want for their 5 daughters is for them to marry well so they can live a comfortable life. But Elizabeth is getting a little bit older in these terms. I mean, she's like 21 or 22, I think, and not yet married. The audacity. And this really just follows the entire Bennet family and this society through attending balls, meeting eligible bachelors, going round to the high society's people's places, and just kind of like hanging out. It is definitely a character-driven story. There's not a whole lot of plot, but these characters, even through the dialect differential, felt so real. Like with their shortcomings and their flaws, they felt very fleshed out. First, we have Elizabeth, this headstrong, stubborn, sarcastic woman who thinks she knows everything. She is judgmental and overconfident, but she is also like so loving and so loyal. And then we have Mr. Darcy, a prideful young man who at first seems like he doesn't want to like deign himself to stoop to the level to folly with any kind of romance at all. But Elizabeth actually like verbally spars with him. She doesn't immediately like dote over him like everyone else seems to do, because he is a very eligible bachelor, which of course makes him the aim of so many of these young women's affections to no avail. At first, he seems very rude and quite pompous, but the more that we learn about him and the more that his true self and his true colors start to show, the more that his, love and care and really selflessness show, and it is quite swoon-worthy. There are so many damn characters in this book. It was a struggle sometimes to keep track of who everyone was, but everyone kind of had their own unique little like stereotypes. They were these caricatures and had their certain positions in the story, so that did make it a little bit easier to follow who everyone was, but they definitely were not as fleshed out as our key players were. The banter and the verbal sparring and the development between these two characters of Elizabeth and Mr. Darcy are really, obviously, where this book shines. I did enjoy the other aspects of the story and seeing kind of the other characters' storylines, but when Elizabeth and Mr. Darcy weren't on the page together, I was wishing they were. When I was first reading this, I was thinking, like, is this the original enemies to lovers? Like, it makes me want to do some research. Both of these characters' development throughout this entire story was just such a sweet journey to follow. The ending did feel wrapped up rather quickly. I do wish that we would have gotten some more context of Elizabeth and Mr. Darcy after they, established their feelings to each other. I mean, I know that, this was published in 1813 and maybe like public displays of affection weren't as acceptable back then, but come on, Jane Austen, give us something. It's honestly a testament to how well written this romance was that I shipped these two characters so much when they never even touched each other. I will admit that I did find myself, my mind was wandering a little bit through some of the parts. I was getting a little bit bored through some of the sections, but overall, I was pleasantly surprised at how much I enjoyed this, despite the language obviously taking a little bit of getting used to. I gave this 4 stars. Reading this definitely makes me curious and makes me want to pick up more classics, especially of the romance variety. And I would definitely be willing to pick up some other Jane Austen works. Her writing is beautiful. Although, it does definitely take some getting used to, but it was really beautiful. And now for my favorite part, the superlatives of this season. First, I will go over my favorite book of every month, and then my favorite overall. In December, my favorite book was Wreck the Halls by Tessa Bailey. In January, I'm sure it's no surprise, my favorite book was When the Wolf Comes Home by Nat Cassidy. And in February, again, I'm sure no surprise, my favorite book was Heartless Hunter by Kristen Ciccarelli. Being, I think, the only 5-star that I got the entire season, my favorite book of the season was, of course, When the Wolf Comes Home by Nat Cassidy. Best audiobook. Although a little disappointing, I still have to give it to Caught Up by Nevessa Allen. I absolutely adore the duet narration style, and both of these narrators were acting their asses off. This is the blueprint, both this and Lights Out. This entire series is the blueprint of what a romance audiobook should be. And we also have to talk about the least best book, which no doubt was Make the Season Bright by Ashley Herring Blake. What book will I be recommending most? I mean, guys, I gotta give it to When the Wolf Comes Home by Nat Cassidy. Even if you don't read horror, I feel like anybody that picks this book up can find enjoyment in it and get something out of it. It was phenomenal. I still can't stop thinking about it. Biggest surprise? I'm gonna have to go with Thrum by Meg Smitherman. I had no idea what to expect going into this, but it was so good. I was so surprised at how much I enjoyed it. Biggest disappointment, unfortunately, has to go to Caught Up by Nevessa Allen. I was looking forward to this so much after being obsessed with Lights Out, and this just did not hit the same, unfortunately. Most beautiful cover. There were quite a few gorgeous covers that I read this season, but I think I'm going to go with Violet Thistlethwaite Is Not a Villain Anymore. This is just so adorable. It has 2 of my favorite color combos. I mean, it perfectly matches, maybe not perfectly, but it matches my tattoo, which I thought was really cute. And it's just gorgeous with all of the flowers and the dragon. So I'm going to go with this one. And lastly, my new favorite character. This one is always such a tough call because I fall in love with so many characters, but I think I'm going to have to go with Mr. Darcy from Pride and Prejudice. I completely understand the hype now. I see why he is still referenced so heavily in romance today and why he is referenced as the pinnacle male love interest. Yes, he is definitely flawed and he does have shortcomings, but his selflessness, his love and care are unmatched. So I will be going with Mr. Darcy. Wow, what a great reading season. Friends, let me know down in the comments if you have read any of these books and your thoughts on them. Also, let me know what your favorite read of the season has been so far. Or if you don't have much to say and just want to let me know you were here, leave me some snowflakes in the comments to say goodbye to winter. While you're down there, don't forget to like the video if you liked it and subscribe if you want to see more from me in the future. I hope you are loving what you are reading lately. God, stay safe out there. And I will see you very soon for another video. Bye, friends.
You didn't think I'd be here waiting up all night, all night. I'm here to tell you something. There ain't another love that is gonna hold you down like mine.